Hello! In this video, I'm going to take you through the use of scaffolded instruction and hopefully be able to empower you with some tools and strategies for implementation. Just a quick review about why we have to have scaffolded instruction. Lev Vygotsky talks about the fact that optimal learning takes place when we are working inside of the zone of proximal development. That's that area where students are working with content that is not too easy but not too hard. And it's important. It's just right in zone for them to be able to work. It's content that does provide struggle for them, but it's not so much of a struggle that it's impossible for them to do. And so a reminder of what scaffold instruction is. Of course, a scaffold is a temporary support structure put in place to assist students in accomplishing new tasks and concepts they could not typically achieve on their own. And as we talk about scaffold instruction, I think it's always important to go back and quickly reflect on where does that piece come into play when we're talking about the optimal learning model or gradual release of responsibility. And this graphic comes from Reggie Routman. And of course, as you're doing the modeling as the teacher, scaffolded instruction is not going to take place there. That's for you to demonstrate, to show students how to do things. And then when a shared demonstration takes place, when you as the teacher are leading that and students are there just to ask questions and collaborate, scaffolded instruction can take place there, but that may not be the optimal spot. The optimal spot takes place when you hand things over to students in guided practice, where they are the ones doing the bulk of the work, and then your role as the teacher becomes to help clarify, confirm, and support students as they are working. And then those scaffolds may carry over to independent practice, but hopefully as students are working through that guided range, you're able to start removing those scaffolds. Let's talk about how we implement scaffolding strategies. There are three major ways that we can implement scaffolding strategies. One is through prior knowledge, and it's a great technique to ask students to share their own personal experiences or knowledge about the topic they are learning about. A great application of this is it's an activity called a brain dump, where students have an opportunity just to get out a sheet of paper and you give them 30 seconds and they're going to write everything they know about a certain topic of study. This actually allows them to make connections in their brains as they're working. And in fact, that ability to connect to prior knowledge is something that our brains yearn. They thirst for when we're learning new applications. They're constantly looking for those new connections. So it becomes important for us as teachers to facilitate that connection to prior knowledge. Another avenue for implementing scaffolding strategies is through the use of visual aid. Graphic organizers are a great tool, not only to help students organize their thoughts, but also to build on their thinking and even build those supports up in a scaffolded way to get to the level that you expect inside of your lesson. One final way to implement scaffolding strategies is through pre-teaching vocabulary. We all know that our students come with various backgrounds and experiences, and vocabulary can be a huge barrier to learning inside of our classrooms. So it's essential that we as teachers are very intentional about pre-selecting vocabulary that we believe students are going to struggle with, and pre-testing that, preparing presentation of each word, and then explicitly teaching each word and providing opportunities to practice. The research on that says that students need 15 to 20 exposures to a word before they can actually start using that vocabulary in any way, shape, or form. Over the next several slides, I'm going to be talking with you guys about just scaffolding strategies as a whole. And so, when you're looking in your classroom and you're saying, okay, now I know that these students are struggling, what am I going to do to help scaffold their learning? And one way to do that is activating prior knowledge. We talked about that one earlier. Also offering motivational context to pique student interest or curiosity at the subject at hand. Taking a task and breaking it into easier, more doable steps is a great strategy for ensuring students are successful. It's a great way to scaffold. Showing students an example of the desired outcome before they complete the task is also another great strategy. Modeling the thought process for students through Think Aloud. We sometimes really take for granted the thought processes that happen inside of our heads, and modeling that for our students becomes a very powerful tool, and it is a scaffolding strategy. Offering hints or partial solutions to problems using verbal prompts and cues, and then teaching students chants or mnemonic devices to ease memorization. All of these are great scaffolds, but I do want to make sure I point out, especially for those last 3 bullets, that we have to be very cognizant as teachers that we do not over scaffold instruction. I think because we want to see our students succeed, sometimes we over scaffold and make things easier for them to obtain. And if you remember at the very beginning of this presentation, I shared the zone of proximal development and the importance of instruction falling in that zone for our students. And if we over scaffold, we make things too easy for our kids, and therefore they don't learn. They don't actually have to endure that productive struggle. And because they don't have to endure that productive struggle, they don't have the opportunity to grow as far and as fast as they could. Additional scaffolding strategies is facilitating student engagement and participation, ensuring that students are engaged. Historical timelines to offer context for learning. Graphic organizers are here again. Excuse me. Teaching key vocabulary, again, is also another important scaffolding strategy. Guiding students in making predictions for what they expect will occur in a story. Experiment with that, experiment or other course of action, and asking those questions while students are engaging in content to encourage deeper investigation and understanding. Suggesting possible strategies and providing those strategies for students while they're doing independent practice, and modeling an activity for the students before they're asked to complete the same or similar activity. This little graphic comes from misshauser.com, and this actually is related to the use of scaffolding for ELL learners. And I found it a very helpful strategy because, I found it a very helpful graphic because it kind of really lays out, if I'm working with students who struggle in the area of language, whether they're an English language learner or not, these can be great scaffolds that can take place inside of our classrooms. One other thing I want to make sure I include about misshauser.com, you'll actually have, at the end of the presentation, there's a link straight to this blog entry for her, and she goes through and she describes each one of these scaffolding strategies. So I'm going to wrap up with just some reflection questions that I think it's important for us as we hear new information or maybe are affirmed in information that we already know, just to start kind of thinking. So what are 3 new go-to scaffolding strategies that I can work into my daily work? So what are those 2 or 3? Now we went over a lot of information, a lot of strategies that you can use inside of your classroom. And I'm that person that firmly believes that it's better to be great at a couple of things than good at a whole lot. And so what are those things that we can look at and say, okay, I'm going to try this, this, and this. And I'm going to start trying to refine those and make them a staple about what I do inside of my classroom. Which leads into the next question, which is how will I work to use those and other strategies, maybe you already have a few in your back pocket, and for your students. And then these last 2 I think are very, very important pieces, because we have to almost put a check and a balance in play to make sure that we, as the teachers, do not over scaffold instruction, that we are not making things too easy for our students, but also making sure that we're providing the right scaffolds and not making things too hard. And then the last piece, and I think this is very, very important. I think sometimes we put those scaffolds in play and say, Johnny can do grade level work, or Johnny can now do this task because of the scaffolds, because of the things that are happening inside the classroom. But ultimately, our goal is for him to be able to do those without those scaffolds. So once you start implementing scaffolds, you also have to start looking at what is your plan to fade those supports and ensure that students can complete the given task without those direct supports all of the time. I do appreciate your all's time. As I said, these will be active links where once you access the actual presentation, you can see them, you can click on them, they'll take you straight there. And if you want to access the presentation, all you need to do is grab your QR scanner, scan that, it'll take you straight to the presentation. I appreciate you guys tuning in to this video. I hope it has been beneficial for you, and thank you very much.